Yo guys, welcome back to the channel. We got a special one. This is US Pro Crit Nationals on board with our buddy Will. Welcome back, Will.
Thanks, Jeff. This one is a wet and complicated race for sure.
Right, obviously serious competition. First, can we talk about the fact that it is Pro Crit Nationals, because amateur or elite Crit Nationals is no longer a thing, right?
Right, yeah, they got rid of that race. It is no more. So we have one nationals for everyone in the men's group, and then they just break it down to like U23, that kind of thing. But for Cat 1 and above, this is it.
This is it. Like, you know what? As somebody who now has an even smaller chance of ever winning an elite jersey at a national level event, I still appreciate this change, because have you tried to explain to people outside of this sport, like, okay, so there are two national championships for crit racing. Setting aside gender and setting aside age categories, just for the elite men, well, there's elite pro and there's elite. Okay, what's the difference? It's like, oh my God, it was so difficult and awkward. I appreciate that now there is the elite Criterium national championships, right? It simplifies things.
Yep, just one race.
Yeah.
One national champion for the Criterium.
And with that said, you can see all these familiar faces, familiar jerseys, and God, probably over 100 people in this field. We're coming out to race circles in the slick, rainy roads. We must be crazy. Will, what were your thoughts coming into this, having, one teammate?
Yeah, actually, I was able to get a few teammates. We've got Eli Woodard, we've got John Heinlein, who was my teammate on Echelon the year before, and then Clayton Travis, who's had some great results and was racing pretty well at the beginning of the year. So we've got, I think, 4 guys total in this race, maybe more. But yeah, we've got a good crew, but really in this course, it's just going to be kind of an every man for himself kind of situation. And yeah, race in the rain, get together the best you can.
Yeah, strength in numbers. And with that being said, strength in numbers, let's talk about Project Echelon, because they seemed like they came in with a plan to try to better Rainstorm. Rainstorm is this team in the orange on the left, and we'll show here a picture of Project Echelon, who spent almost the entire time at the front of the race. Is that right?
Yeah, their plan was just to ride the front the whole time, which is a good idea when you've got the most horsepower of any other team. I really don't even know if Rainstorm was a huge factor in this race. Like, they don't have their main dudes here. They have Danny Summerhill, and that is it. All the rest of their guys are like Alfredo's from Mexico, and Brian's Colombian, Para.
Oh,
yeah,
that's an interesting point. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, they have a lot of Caribbean, South American, and Mexican riders who compete in a nationals event like this. So, yeah, interesting. Because I was about to ask, why don't Rainstorm have all of their guys? But there's the answer. So, yeah, Project Echelon, and then I had a couple of teammates there. Of course, this is Will's footage. This is not my footage. But a couple of my teammates from Mike's Bikes were there, who actually were pretty consequential throughout this race. We had Iman, we had Tim. We're going to talk more about them in a little bit. And then there were some proper pros, too, right? There were some World Tour pros in this race.
Yeah, we've definitely got Lawson Craddock in this race. He's done Tour de France's before, and he was sending it off the front pretty hard. I think a lot of the rest of the World Tour guys sat this one out, being a rainy crit, and with Pronats the next day, the road race the next day, and then with the Tour de France coming up so quickly after. I think a lot of those guys decided to not do this one.
Right. That makes sense. But then there's like Legion, and there's Ribble, and there's everybody in this race is a hitter, right, guys? There's Iman on the left, my teammate in the purple. Yeah. Needless to say, everyone is here who is, top U.S. crit racers in the country come out to win a Stars and Stripes jersey. But taking the front on a really wet course like this is important. Okay, Will doesn't know this yet, but I'm sending him out a care package from our friends and channel sponsor, Ketone IQ. I'm going to give him a couple of options because we want Will to perform his best in Chicago for the upcoming Crit Series. And for that, we have a couple of new products here. The first one is, look, new bottle. Not just a new bottle, a new flavor. Bam. And also, importantly right there, that's right, they've done it. 100 milligrams of caffeine per bottle now, in addition to the 10 grams of ketones per bottle. Awesome. These are Twilight crits, though, so maybe he doesn't want that shot of caffeine. No worries, we have the original proven formula now in a pouch, cyclist-friendly pouch. So thanks again to Ketone IQ for sponsoring this video. Now back to the race. And as we skip forward to still the first half of this race, you can see why staying towards the front is important because you can get caught behind crashes. That was on a straight piece of road. Tell us what was going on there.
Yeah, Michael Garrison, super strong dude. He's been getting great results all year. He was just a little bit too far up into the echelon train. I think people looked back and then overlap of wheels. All of a sudden, he hits the deck. On this course, that's a good spot to do it. Like, you're going into a straightaway. There's no sudden stops. In the rain, it's nice to crash because you don't get that much road rash. So we'll see him back in the race a little bit later. But that was the first incident of the night up here at the front.
But he was trying to get himself into the Project Echelon lead out, right? Like already at this point, they've made their intentions clear. You can see them at the front here. Will, you've made yourself... You've gotten yourself into good position up here. This is a Legion rider. This is another Project Echelon rider. Everybody wants to be up there, but here's the thing: like, teammates will hold the wheels. They'll defend that position really aggressively because that's the whole point of getting you and your teammates towards the front is to strengthen numbers like we talked about earlier. And Project Echelon's doing exactly that. So when somebody's trying to insert themselves into a lead out, be prepared to, be met with some resistance. And I think that's what happened because otherwise a straight piece of road, why is there a reason for a crash? It must have just been an overlap. It doesn't take much if you just get a little bump in the rain, especially on the paint like this, guys. You just lose control of the front wheel and then you're sliding. It's this total slip and slide. And yeah, like you said, good thing, Michael was able to get himself back into the race. There's not as much friction. And he was able to get himself back in. But yeah, it looks like you're fighting to get towards the front. But you mentioned this wasn't a particularly hard race. Can we talk about the numbers you were producing?
Yeah, I think I was at tempo for most of the race. I did pick some good lines that I could save a ton of energy in. So not kicking too hard out of corners, just being as smooth as I can, accepting that this race is just all going to be together. Looking back, we dropped a lot more guys than I was expecting us to. It was probably a lot harder the farther back you got. But yeah, I was in my tempo zone, which usually I would be high tempo, if not more, in a 90-minute crit. So this was relatively easy until the last few laps where the heart rate jacked up and yeah, it was game time.
Well, before we pop, we're gonna skip to the end here in a minute. But before we get there, I just want to mention, guys, if you're racing, crits in general, this is a good rule, but especially a technical course in the rain. It was tempo, and it was easy for Will. Because Will's strong, and tempo's a bigger number than you think, but also because you're up towards the front. Project Echelon's taking the front in order to have a consistent, smooth ride, and Will's benefiting from that because he's right at the end of it. And you can see that Legion's doing the same thing, and you'll see kind of a shuffling around of the best crit racers because they're positioning themselves to benefit from that smooth riding. The reason all those riders were dropped is because they are doing this inefficient sprinting out of every corner. And this is the consequence of just kind of being back, in what are usually the cheap seats of the peloton, where the draft is better, but on a rainy crit like this, it's much harder to hold the wheel, and you just have to expend so much more energy for the same average speed than being up towards the front like this. You can see how smooth Will is taking these corners. Yeah, the power numbers are still there, but it's not the same as being towards the back. People towards the back are doing way higher normalized power for the same average speed. This is why you want to fight for position, especially early on when a big team like Project Echelon's taking the front and benefit from that. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that point. I just think it's really important for you guys starting racing. How is this guy going just as fast, if not faster than me, for less power? Well, it's probably because he's just taking smoother lines, more efficient corners, and he's up in better position. That's that makes that possible. So should we fast forward a bit to the end, see how this race plays out?
Let's do it.
All right, so a little bit further on in this race, Will still in good position. You can see you moving up on the left-hand side. And hey, who's that? That's Iman, right? That's my teammate sending one off the front. He would stay off the front for quite a while, but look who's on the right there. Big, long train of blue jerseys. Project Echelon still bossing the front. Are they going to panic and freak out with Iman off the front, Will?
No, that's the biggest asset of having this many guys and this much horsepower is you can just be relaxed the whole time. If nothing else, you're just saving mental energy, just not panicking about stuff because you've got the guys to pull stuff back. So they just let him dangle, let him spend his energy, and they're just going to roll through smoothly, save their own energy, not have any of those big kicks and just stay together, it is a much less stressful way of racing, especially in technical courses, especially in the rain and these adverse conditions.
Yeah, I mean, in any other circumstance, like Iman is the type of guy who can win from this distance, and especially in trying conditions like this. But this just shows like the experience and the discipline that Project Echelon have. They're not freaking out, right? Like I think it's common for new racers to totally freak out in this position and be like, "Oh my God, I'm losing," and start. Well, that was pretty close, by the way, Will. And start sprinting in order to bring back this threatening rider in Iman, but Project Echelon's not going to do that, right? They're basically like the new Legion. Like they really are just bossing the front, and they're racing so controlled and disciplined. And they're thinking, okay, there's 40 Ks left. Iman's strong, but against like 8 of us with this distance, like he'll come back eventually. And yeah, it's just like it's a high class of racing. This is the type of racing, the type of team dynamics you'll see at the World Tour level, right? The Tour de France is going on right now. You guys see these big trains, and that's the reason for it. Like Will said, it's strength in numbers, and it's just understanding that like look, 8 versus 1, it's coming back. So they're not going to freak out. They're going to stay on the front. And Will's getting kind of tossed around the washing machine a little bit here. Let's see if he can move up a few more spots, get back into that sweet spot. Okay, so now we're about 10 laps to go in this race, and as you can see, it is now dark, and it is raining even harder, right, Will?
That's right. It picked up quite a bit, and this race is starting to get down to crunch time, so we've got to be careful.
And you can see it's just hard. Like the GoPro footage is almost like what it's looking like through your sunglasses at this point in the race. And unfortunately, the GoPro runs out of batteries, but the good news is we have this extra footage. So now we are inside of 2 laps to go. You can see that Project Echelon is still on the front with like six riders. There's still, and there's Will right there in the red. We'll put an arrow on him right up there. Like you can see, dude, you are still in the hunt here. But the problem is, Echelon is still driving it on the front. Like right. who just pulled off?
Yeah, Tyler Stites was on the front for 50 minutes of this race, and he just finished his last pull. It's going to go faster now.
A little too fast, maybe. Yeah, there goes the wipeout. So Project Echelon's screwed, right? I mean, they were bossing this entire race, and now inside of 2 laps to go, they just lost like half of their guys on the front. But not so fast, because that was the back half of their group. Here's the replay. And you can see that is white paint. That is paint, wet, going a little bit too fast. And yeah, them's the brakes. But as you can see, there were 2 riders who came off the front who are now still off the front. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, Stephen Bassett and Brendan Brim both snuck away. Luckily, it wasn't the front of their train that went down, so they still have 2 guys, and there's just a natural gap forming off the front, so they're just going to keep rolling as hard as they can, which works out for them.
And they still have the fire. This is what's insane to me, is like they were controlling the race for almost this entire race, and then they still have the firepower to do this. Like, it's so impressive how well that Project Echelon raced. Guys, pro nationals. And here are the 2 riders, Brendan Rim and who's the other rider you said? Bassett?
Stephen Bassett.
Yeah.
Bassett ended up,
Yeah, so they were still at the front. And if there's 2 guys to really, like, seal the deal from this distance at this level of racing on Project Echelon, well, actually for anybody, not just Project Echelon, for anybody, it's these 2 guys. They're so good at this type of effort. And they're just going to keep riding. You can see they're just right on the edge of their tires, even in this weather on this course. And they're holding like a 5 or 7 second gap or something like that on the last lap. I remember watching this live, and I was like, oh my God, are they still going to take this down? But there's all these hungry riders behind who haven't been on the front rotating like Project Echelon have. But here's the difference, guys. Like I've said before, being on the front sometimes is easier than sitting in the draft when you can take choice lines through every corner. So even though these guys on Project Echelon, yes, they've been part of the rotating group on the front this entire race, there's a lot to be said for not being in that washing machine that Will was having to deal with this entire race. And you can see they're sprinting now. There you are, Will, again. I just saw another glimpse of you. You're in this first chase group. What were you thinking at this point? Were you thinking they're coming back?
Yeah, Noah Granigan had just jumped up on the front. He's got a motor too. There was like Kyle Teasler trying to pull it back as well. So people were motivated to get this back, undoubtedly. I thought it was coming back. Small gap. It is only one lap, but it's like a 1.5 mile lap, so I thought it was coming back for sure. And I'm just getting ready for the sprint with Clayton there. We're just defending ourselves and getting ready for it to be a bunch sprint.
Right, and you can see all the gaps, the chaos, just first caused by the crash, but then also mostly just because they're going 1,000 miles an hour. And honestly, when I was watching the end of this race, I thought they were posting up too early. They're coming down the final straightaway, and I was like, oh my God, have they made the most terrible mistake ever and posted up too early and got caught? Well, as you can see, it turns out they were fine. They went 1-2. In fact, I think they went 1-2-3, right? Who was third? Actually, it's not Barry lead. Who was first?
First was Stephen Bassett. He came across the line, then Brendan Rim, and then in third, Scott McGill got the bunch sprint. So he just rode the bunch perfectly and ended up third. So they swept the podium in this Nationals race.
It's so well deserved. They did all the work on the front. They still managed to pull this off. And where did you end up, Will?
I ended up 10th with Clayton right in front of me in 9th place. So got a pretty good result considering.
Dude, I would be so stoked with the top 10 at U.S. Pro Nationals. That was pretty sick. And we can see you crossing the line there too. So congratulations, Will. Hopefully we can get some better GoPro batteries for you there for the next one. But I'm glad that we have this external footage. And guys, we still have. I was about to say Intelligentsia. It's Chicago Grit coming up.
Yes, Chicago Grit.
And then also Gateway Cup. So we still have a lot of big races this season. And get subscribed if you want to see more of Will racing these national level races. Then be sure to stay tuned and check out his channel. I'll link in the description. Thanks again, Will, for coming on.
Thanks, Jeff.